Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Rebecca, I'm 44 years old, I live in Galicia in northern Spain, and I'm somebody who used to suffer from multiple sclerosis, who no longer experiences any of the symptoms since starting the carnivore diet a year ago. And in today's video I wanted to discuss the topics of hope and healing, and this has come about because I've had a few emails this week from viewers who have raised these topics, and it's got me thinking about them, and I've realised that my relationship with both hope and healing is actually quite complex. It's not as necessarily positive as one might think. I've realised that there's different sides to hope, there's different sides to healing. They interact with each other, but not necessarily in a constructive way. So I wanted to discuss these things, and I wanted to discuss them in the context of my own personal experience. So I may go into personal detail about my own case, but what I'm hoping is that the discussion will be applicable to you viewing it, and that you might contribute to the discussion, add your comments with your thoughts. So what could be possibly negative about hope? One of the viewers who wrote to me asked me, she has MS and she's started the carnivore diet. Hi, by the way. Looking forward to coming to Lisbon and meeting you. Oh, sorry, there's a fly. How did a fly get in my caravan? There's fly screams. Yeah, so specifically she asked me, do we have cause for hope here, referring to the carnivore diet and multiple sclerosis? So I thought it was quite interesting because it made me reflect back on when I was at my most ill. And I realised that when I was in that state of being, which was when I was still back in England and living in the city and was completely alone and housebound and struggling very, very badly with all manner of disabling symptoms, as well as injecting painful medication every day. It was a very, very traumatizing time, and it went on for a long time, so it's left many scars. When I was in that state of being, I didn't have any hope. Hope wasn't part of my mindset at all, partly because I was so miserable, and partly because that's what the medical profession was telling me. You don't have any cause for hope because this is a degenerative disease and it will only get worse. The state you're in right now is the best you'll ever be. It's only going to get worse. So it was literally a state of hopelessness and helplessness, which just felt like it couldn't be true. That's how shocking it was. It felt like it couldn't be true. And as it turns out, it didn't have to be true, but I didn't know that then. So anyway, I didn't live in hope, and I wasn't in a place where I could even begin to start thinking about healing. So these things weren't even part of my vocabulary back then. But things changed when I had my first upturn in health, which was to do with my environment. I have discussed this a little bit in previous videos and in some interviews. I had a small but significant upturn in health. It was small because it didn't fix everything, but it was significant because it took me from non-functioning to functioning just enough to be able to get myself out of the environment I was in and move to Spain, which is what I did. So I moved to Spain up a mountain off-grid to live in nature, and that move was infused with hope for healing in whatever way that might happen. And it was an extremely optimistic time. Even though I was still very limited by my fatigue and other symptoms, they improved, but they didn't go away, and I was still limited very much. And I spent 4 years on that mountain, and the healing process was so gradual that it was barely noticeable until I started the carnivore diet. That was when everything changed. But the few years leading up to that, when I was on the mountain, I would say I had some hope and I had a degree of healing. But what I found was that healing, there's different levels to healing, because the thing is, multiple sclerosis didn't just take away my health. It took away so much more than my health. It took away my career, my social life, my sense of belonging in a family and in the world was taken away. My sense of mattering, counting, was gone. I didn't, it was like an ego death. So I moved to Asturias a couple of years, well, it was the pandemic. As soon as I arrived in Asturias, it was the pandemic, so time froze. But then once the pandemic had passed, I suppose that's when I guess I'd had time to start developing a relationship with healing, physically, cognitively and emotionally. But the thing is, what happened was, because I wasn't fully healed, I moved to the mountain before I was fully healed, in order to fully heal, hoping to fully heal. But because I wasn't fully healed, I was extremely vulnerable. And I guess I was a little bit desperate too. I was definitely very in a state of absolute desperation to not be lonely anymore and to somehow have a meaningful life. So that meant that I made friends with people I should not have made friends with. They were not friends. They did not have my best interests at heart. In fact, I was ripped off, abused, harassed, and all sorts of other things in Asturias. There's no point in revisiting it, really, but at the same time, I'm not healed from it yet, so part of me needs to talk about it. It felt like had all my bones broken and I was healing that, and then I was thrown into a boxing ring. That's what it felt like. And it became clear that, and because the thing is, this was an abusive situation. I was being essentially abused. Let's just say it. This was an abusive relationship that I got myself into. Not physically abusive, but financially and emotionally abusive, but covertly so. So I didn't realise it was abusive because that wasn't what was presented to my face. The abuse was started to feel like it was coming from the outside world, but I realised it was conflict being sown by the person closest to me, and who would then sit back and watch the consequences of all that conflict come crashing down on me. And it was like he just got out the popcorn and sat back and enjoyed it while taking money from me, and not from me but from my father. And then it turns out that he was putting out a narrative to a whole bunch of new dopamine hits that I was a disabled girl that was dragging him down, but who he couldn't dump because he was too kind to dump me. When the truth was completely the opposite. I was financially supporting him, and the idea was that he would be earning money to put back in the pot because we were a team. We were partners, but he never put back a penny in the pot. He just was happy to just take thousands off my father, and then further to that, hurt and humiliate me publicly, while privately presenting something entirely different. So I did not know what reality I was living in. It was gaslighting, it was betrayal and deception on such a vast scale, but it wasn't possible without his enablers carrying out the abuse, doing his dirty work for him. So they're just as much to blame. People who only had known him for a week and didn't know me at all got involved, harassed, accused, slandered. They put this gossip out that I had literally killed him, that I had murdered my partner, who I was literally trying to keep alive, and pouring love and attention and care into, and defending his reputation, and I was not the problem in his life. If anything, I was becoming stronger and stronger and stronger by the day because I started the carnivore diet, and he was getting the benefit of that. So I don't want this video to be about that situation. However, I can't talk about the process of healing without talking about it, because my healing journey was so completely set back by what happened, and now I feel like I'm at square one again. This time the difference is I have my health, and getting my health back is just the beginning of the healing journey, because trauma goes so deep in your body, and I already had the trauma, and then these people turned that trauma and used it against me. So I don't know how to get out of this hole. I still don't. Doing this video, I'm hoping will help. I'm hoping it will, by externalizing it to some degree, will help. I've really not known how to come to terms with losing my life in Asturias. Selling your house and moving, it's not a straightforward thing. It's extremely disruptive, extremely hard. I miss Asturias, although I don't miss the people. And I don't miss my partner, but I'm also so sad because so much of my hope was bound up in him, and my sense of not being alone in the world and having a family, and I'll always love some part of him, some part of our relationship because we went travelling and he sort of brought me back into the world. But what I found was I didn't want to be in the world. The world was a horrible place. You know, you have to create your own little world, don't you, that protects you from the rest of the world. But I you know, I'll never not feel deeply sad when I think of him and our time together, because it was like death by 1,000 paper cuts, but at the same time it was also, you know, we were friends. We played board games and we had a little family with the dogs and we were intimate, you know. And also something I've not talked about is the fact that, I mean, this was actually a red flag. I don't know why I'm going into this topic. I don't know how to order my thoughts. I guess I'm just getting started on these topics. But there was also that hope that maybe I could become pregnant, because one of the first contradictions that I learnt about my ex was that he was going around saying that he didn't want any more children. He has a kid already back in the UK. But he was like adamant, no more children. But he never took any steps to prevent that with me, which meant that every month I wouldn't say go so far as say I was hoping, but I was wondering if maybe this was my destiny now. Maybe randomly I would suddenly find that I had a new purpose in life. You know, in the very last years of my fertility, maybe this is what the universe had in store for me. And it kind of, that kept me in the relationship. And that takes us back to the concept of hope being dangerous, because that, it wasn't so much that I was hoping to get pregnant, but the possibility that I might was there in the back of my mind. And it, you know, I'm in my 40s, so, but these days that seems to happen more and more. So while he was going around telling everybody that we weren't even in a relationship, we were potentially getting pregnant every single month. Like, everything he said was complete bullshit. It was a complete lie, whether it was to me or to somebody else. He just living in a world of deception, self-deception, incoherence, you know, lack of integrity, and it was becoming more and more obvious. But yeah, I was sort of kept in the relationship almost by this sense of maybe this is going to lead to something that will bring meaning to my life in a way that I would never have expected. You know, I wouldn't have expected us to stay together, but maybe we would have co-parented. You know, that was the kind of what I was wondering, if that was what the universe had in store. And yeah, I think that was where a case where hope was dangerous. Hope was keeping me in an abusive relationship. But that's healing, isn't it? Because there's this cycle of setbacks, and you've been isolated from the world for so long when you've been chronically ill often, and if you're healing, you're then moving back into the world, but you're not the same person you used to be. You never will be again. You'll be pieced back together in the healing process, bit by bit, very, very gradually, but you won't be the same as you were before you were broken into a million pieces. And those setbacks are going to it's going to be completely demoralising every time you have one of those setbacks, because of the hope you have for reaching a place where you feel fully healed. You know, that hope then makes the setbacks more demoralising. So it's actually a really difficult so I've sort of exposed a little bit of the negativity that I often am feeling, even though I've got my health back, which when I was really ill was the only thing I wanted, and now I've got it back. It almost feels like, well, how ungrateful am I? How can I be struggling still when I have my health? I can get out of bed, I can meet new people, I can get a job, you know, and I am doing all those things, and they are wonderful, and I am healing, but I'm not healed. I'm not healed yet, and I know that the process is going to take longer still. Now I'm in a situation where I feel like my hopes and my healing journey is starting over. My healing is emotional. That's what I'm actively healing. So as you can tell, I'm not there yet. Healing is a process which presupposes that you're not there yet. You're in the process. So it's not a pleasant experience. It's painful. But incrementally, you start to feel those moments of a healthy life, good relationships, you know, the righting of wrongs, but it's so gradual that it's barely noticeable. You know, I might be driving in my car and songs playing, and I might just for a moment just feel like almost like a sense of I have a normal life, a full life, you know, but it's slow and it's incremental. And my hopes are tied up in Mushroom Manor and meeting new people and doing projects here. So I think I've gone off on so many tangents that I've only kind of opened the topic without really drawing any useful conclusions. But I think ultimately we have to have hope, or we may not act, but that hope has to be combined with pragmatism and critical thinking, or we can find ourselves in a situation of stuck in a situation that stagnating in a situation that isn't actually doing us any good. So I think that's the conclusion I would draw about hope. And healing, I would say that healing is something that's so multifaceted, it's hard to reach a point where you say, well, now I'm healed, especially because you're not going back to the state you started off in. You're going to be healed, but in a new state, as a new person, and that process is long, very slow, and often very painful. So I think maybe it's just about managing your expectations, but keeping that sense of agency. For me, the YouTube channel has been the biggest source of hope and healing. I can say that 100%. The YouTube channel is what kept me going through what was going on in Asturias. So if you don't have a support network, that may complicate your healing. So having that support is what, you know, I think without that, your healing is going to be, you're potentially going to walk into even more painful situations. So that's what I found in Asturias. So I'm much more careful now about who I mix with and what I let myself hope for. I'm much more guarded, and maybe that's a sign of healing, or maybe that's a sign of trauma, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is healing, as far as I have experienced it, is a painful process, but it's moving towards, there's a sense of progression in it and purpose. There's a direction. The YouTube channel has been a massive source of healing and hope for me, and I cannot thank you guys enough. I mean, I really mean it. I really mean it. And one of the people who wrote to me described me as a flow of hope, which made me cry. That made me cry because I don't experience my life yet. I may put out about how good I feel physically, and that's 100% true, but mentally, emotionally, because of all the years of trauma, particularly recent years, I just feel like a complete mess. I feel like a complete mess. And I get my strength from you guys. I get my strength from the positive feedback and the validation that you guys give me that I might maybe be strong, at least, if not fully healed. That's what I'd like to see myself as, a strong person who doesn't need professional help, because professional help actually often is useless. In fact, professional help only ever made things worse. So I trust my own methods and my own inner strength, and I guess that's where my hope is. That's where my hope is, that this difficult healing journey will continue and will become easier. That's what I'm hoping for. Anyway, I haven't really drawn any conclusions. I've opened a discussion that was actually quite difficult and painful and maybe not that useful, but I would like to continue being a flow of hope. That was a really nice thing to hear, and I really hope it's true, and I really hope that there's basis for that hope. I'm really hoping that if other people take their health into their own hands, they might have the same or similar results that I have done, and then they might be in a position to start the healing journey, even though it may not be easy, but nothing will be harder than the absolute hopelessness that I was experiencing before, when I was isolated and alone in a wheelchair. So I guess that's my reference point for everything, really. Okay, well, anyway, yeah, I don't know what value this particular video may have, but this is just what I felt like talking about today. So take care and see you in the next video. Bye.